Hi, this is Barbara Sanders, and this is Sacred Metamorphoses, plural, on YouTube. And I have the great pleasure of interviewing or conversing with my friend Frank Castellano here in Nashville today. And before we do that, I want to introduce him. I want him to introduce himself, but I'd like us to start with just a little meditation first. Is that okay with you,
That
Frank?
sounds great.
Okay, I need to slow down my breathing and inhale, bringing in light, love, compassion, and exhale, letting out toxins, stresses, tensions, other things from the day. Just breathe for a moment. I'd like to also open this to be sacred space and call in spirit by any name that you want, the divine, the great mysteries, the source, calling in spirit, any guides that we have, any ancestors, pets, friends, the directions north, south, east, and west, and the elements fire, air, water, ground, earth, Mother Earth. And I'd like also to release any negative energies that are maybe attached to me or to you, Frank, and let them go for this time being. Just let them flow out of our fingertips and our toes into the earth to be transmuted and alchemized. And with that, I'd like to get started.
That was wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you. So, Frank Castellano, I
Hmm.
will let him label himself, but what I know of Frank is he is a Nashville psychic, the not Nashville psychic, not psychic
Oh,
Frank. He calls himself some other things, but I have some stories to tell first. I've got my notes here. I think maybe you were a brother in my past life
I
sometimes.
think so. We were connected.
We were
We're
very,
connected again. We'll be
yeah,
connected again.
yes, we are. And I've known you about 20 or 25 years. We're not sure how
Hmm.
long. Do you know how I got to you? Actually, through Gordon Pierman to
I
Tom.
knew you were going to say that.
I know Gordon Pierman to Tom Nielsen to me, to you. And I've referred people to you ever since. And so I hope, well, one thing you'll know about Frank is he doesn't need any marketing. He's got a website called thespiritchrysalis.com,
Hmm.
but he doesn't need any new clients. You have to actually get in touch with him a year or two before you want to come in and talk with him or do Zoom or do energy healing. So I just want to say that. I looked at your website, and one of the things you talk about in there that you wrote long ago was all about change. And change is what happens moment to moment, season by season, just like the ocean changing. And I love that idea and image. Um, let's see. Peggy is Frank's right-hand woman, and she helps out a lot too. And I want to thank her for all that she's helped me with. I am recording this. That's good. Okay, so I want to tell one story about Frank. After maybe 18 years of knowing Frank and having him do a reading or an energy healing with me once or maybe twice a year, I set up a appointment in advance, but little did I know by September of 2022 that I would open my Zoom link to Frank while I was sitting at my mother's bedside, my 99-year-old mother who was dying. And I didn't mean to shock you, Frank. Here I am holding my mother's hand and opening my Zoom link to talk to Frank. And I've always loved you, but if I hadn't appreciated you enough before, I so appreciate your talking
Oh, thank
that
you.
day. As weird and interesting as it was, she could hear you too. And her
Mm.
eyes were closed and she died within 2 days after that, but she could hear you too. And I really, really appreciate that about you, having the flexibility, adaptability to be able to be there with me. Because
And it seems that timing for me is very interesting. People schedule their appointments or I'll have, coffee with someone. And it always ends up that something is going on. And I think that I choose to be of service. I hope to be of service. And it always ends up where spirit is like, here you go, you know? And so even while we were talking and she was back there laying down, it was like all of these beings, you know, just because we were so present, were able to help her in her transition. So it's just really, timing is always pretty magical if you think about it.
I think most things are magical, and I appreciate
Yeah.
the idea. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I want to say one more announcement, and that's that I'm starting a set of meditation gatherings. They're free. They're 10 sessions starting today at 4:30 at the Second Presbyterian Church in Nashville on Belmont. And we'll skip Halloween, but if you would like to come to that, it's totally free. I will accept donations for the rent. Gordon Pierman used to do meditation gatherings there, and that's he I haven't talked to him about this, but that's why I ended up there, was because Gordon used to do these meditation weekly meetings there, and I went only a few times, but it was glorious. And Kathy Woods, his wife, was there for
Mhm.
most of the time. So wanted to say that. Okay,
It's
Frank, how would you like to describe yourself? And then what would you like to talk about today?
usually when I first connect to someone, um, you know, I tell them my my title, the way that I identify, is I'm a precognitive clairvoyant medium, and I'm the sixth generation medium in my family. Um, and the precognitive, there's a different uh, psychic ability comes in a lot of different forms and a lot of different facets. And the precognition part of it is I am seeing events that are going to take place or feeling things that are going to manifest. But what I notice is that it's always tied, at least to me, to what you're here to learn. So when I say, this is what I'm feeling, here's what you're learning. Here's how it's tied back to the lessons that you're here to learn. And here's why your soul is experiencing this. To me, I tell people I read destiny. And destiny to me isn't so much your what you're here to achieve or what you're here to attain. It's what did I come here to learn? What did I come here to experience? And how am I embodying that experience? So I use my psychic abilities, my mediumship to help identify those lessons in people's lives and also the lessons in family lines, because we talk about generational karma or ancestral pain, but oftentimes we don't always talk about generational power and ancestral gifts that we also have to kind of change that line. And I think this is this series is a part not just of your passion, you know, but it's also a way of adding energy into your own family line. I want to be able to talk to people about real things. I want to be able to have conversations and start conversations. So this isn't just an idea that you had. I also know that this is part of what you're bringing in into your family line, embodying and putting that out there and changing the energy, the frequency of your family line for future generations. So to me, it's beautiful what I do. It can seem complicated. It doesn't to me. I sit in front of people and say a prayer just like you did and start a session and help to guide them. So I tend to identify as a psychic medium, but I'm very clear and I'm here to help you understand your lessons.
Yes, and I hadn't said, and I will say now that Frank helped me get on this YouTube channel. He and a couple of other people for years have been guiding me toward write. I love to write, but teaching, and I'm like, I'm not a teacher. I don't want to teach. No, stop it. But it's all about the throat and the voice. And you are part of the reason that I'm doing this, is that I'm trying to share my voice now that I've mostly retired from my psychotherapy profession and gone to Florida and sat with the clouds and the water and the birds. And all of this just came to me partly because of your influence or the way you were able to communicate to me what I might have needed to hear throughout the years.
Mhm.
Thank
It's
you.
wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. So you do, one of the other things Frank does is he will ask usually, do you want to know everything? And I'm always like, yeah. I don't know why. I'm not masochistic so much, but you can also, people that come to you can say, no, I don't really want to hear,
Yeah.
anything," even though what you get is probably unfiltered. Um, Say more about
I,
that.
I mean, I find it's interesting because, you know, what living life to me, the one of the keys of living life is balance. And when we think about even forgiveness, I want to forgive someone, but I don't want to be a doormat. So, the balance to that is I'm going to have boundaries, right? And I want to communicate and speak my truth and listen to feedback, but also if that feedback doesn't feel right to me or it goes against my own personal truth, then I will not accept it. So to me, everything is about balance. And there are times when people think, I want to know everything that's going on in my life and I'm ready for it. And then we start to go down that path and they're like, I'm not ready to hear that. And it's like, okay, they are just telling you this because they want you to know this aspect. They don't need to let you know everything. And I find that the information that comes to me is oftentimes what people need. So even if they don't need to know the totality of a situation or something that's going on in their life, they will get a piece of it that they can comprehend and they can learn from. But I find that even, you know, on one hand, the truth of us is that we are beautiful, perfect creatures that are perfect and we were created out of perfection and we will do amazing things. And also the balance to that is we could grow a little bit. We're even in our perfection, we're still learning, and that's true as well. And so there are people that when we think about truth, whew, that's a big topic because truth, there are universal truths, there are personal truths, and there are truths that even change. And we have to be able to accept that there are truths that can change, you know?
Yes. I think of miracles and forgiveness so important in this world, and not something, the forgiveness part in particular. Some people just jump to that. They jump over a hurdle and think they've forgiven someone who just hurt them. And I'm like, no, it's a process. It's a process.
It's a
I
process.
do believe in miracles and things can transform us, things and change us, spirit can. And that can happen quickly or slowly or whatever, however we need to process it. Uh,
Yeah.
and I would say to you that if you tell me something in a reading that I'm not ready to hear, I probably won't even hear it. I probably
Yeah.
won't even get it, which
Yeah.
is,
There are times when I will be talking to someone and I will say something and then they'll go back and they'll go, "Did you say that?" And I'm like, "Did you not hear it in your recording?" And it's completely it's not, they don't pick up on it till later, and there are people that will listen back to it. Again, it's a balance, and it's also what are we open to, which to me, I love that we're starting this series, we're starting this conversation, and you're very mindful to go, let's start out with a meditation, let's be together, but because we are aware that the spirit world is big, we're also creating some boundaries. We're letting things, go that don't need to be part of this conversation, any stresses, any negativities. You're being open and you're also creating your boundaries. And to me, it's all balance. Everything boils down to, are you open and do you have your balance? And that's one lesson that was taught for me very early on is I want to be able to help people, but my job is not to save people. And I can say you probably know that lesson even deeper than me being a healer. It's like, I want to be able to help you, but I also know that you need to do your own work. And I want to assist you and support you in your own work, but I can't save you. And it's having that balance, isn't it?
yes. And I'm afraid that many of us therapists believed from little children on that we were to save the world, or at least I did, save the world, help people, fix them, rescue them. And I only have learned in the last 5 to 10 years at least. That's not the right job.
No.
That's not my job. My job is to facilitate whatever truth needs to happen or is happening with the situation right now between two people. And that is such a relaxing, open and spiritual thing to do, instead of to think we need to get in there and get problem solved. And that's how I was trained,
Hmm.
problem solving. And that's just not at all what good therapy is, I don't think, or good spiritual direction or teaching or coach.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and when you say my truth was to save the world, and how that's not your truth anymore. Your truth is it's to save me, or to heal me, or to be the best version of me. And that is my world, you know? And so oftentimes when we think about truth, we don't let truth evolve and change. And it's really important for us to, I think our parents are doing the best that they can. I think our mentors are doing the best that they can, but it's our responsibility to take what works for us, whatever spiritual truths work for us, and evolve and change. And that to me is the miracle, the ability to do the work, to, feel the stuff, feel emotions, and let things go. We're in a time of great change and great emotional awareness, and sort of letting things go and being able to change our world and being able to change our truths and step into it. That's the miracle that we're creating. It's amazing, isn't it?
It is amazing. And
Mm-hmm.
like me, this is who I've been all my life, since college on at least, I've been a seeker, a searcher. So I've dabbled in this, I've dabbled in that. I've followed this guru, I've followed this teacher. I've done all sorts of alternative practices, again, not knowing consciously, as if some of that would heal me. And some of it did, but the truth really lies within. And
Right.
at some point, and especially at my age, it is so nice to be able to stop and say, I don't really have to go to 15 more seminars. I don't have to do that retreat. I could just sit with myself and be open and be willing. And that's a gift. Thank you for that.
Mm-hmm.
Helped me with that.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. So what about the world these days? What do you think about the world and what's going on these transformational times? I'm
Yeah,
curious.
I had a conversation with a friend of mine about how people are so angry. And I have a theory. Um, well, let me say that I just finished a series in world religions. I belong to an interfaith church, and one of the things that I did was bring um, different faith leaders together to talk about Hinduism and Buddhism and Islam. And there was a rabbi, and she was talking about Judaism, and she said the central concept in Judaism is something called tikkun olam, which translates to repairing the world or healing the world. And that their belief is that our job as humans is to repair this world so that we can better align it with whatever spirit's concept is, or whatever that looks like. And I do think that as and this may come off as sort of a hot spiritual take, but I think the anger that we're feeling um, is needed, because humans are very uncomfortable with emotions. We do not like emotions. We don't want to feel sad. We don't want to feel scared. We don't want to yearn for something. We don't like to feel longing. It's much more empowering to be in control and to make decisions. And so I think what is going on sort of spiritually is, as we're starting to evolve, what we're starting to do is we're starting to feel more. And because we don't like to feel, the one emotion that we're really comfortable with is anger, because anger can give us a false sense of authority and power. And so the anger that we're seeing, the discourse that we're seeing, is sort of a manifestation of, to me, spirit um, starting to increase our sensitivity level, starting to increase our emotional sensitivity. And now things are bothering us that didn't bother us before, or things are coming up for us that are agitating us that we don't like. And it's causing us to be angry, to be agitated, eventually that's going to lead us to a place where we're going to go, this anger that we're feeling, I'm not liking it and it's not great and it doesn't feel good. I need to figure out why. I need to figure out what's going on underneath. To me, the spiritual world and the physical world are intimately connected. To me, it's like these two vines that are growing that may have the same root system, but they're growing together. And so when we think about the spiritual world, sometimes the spiritual world isn't um, all this woo energy or just that woo energy. It is, look at what's going on in politics and look at what's going on in society. And people go, well, everyone's angry, but that has a purpose because that anger is going to teach us, wow, something needs to be healed. It's covering something up. Let me heal that. We go to therapy, we see healers, we see people that assist us in our growth. And out of that suffering, compassion is cultivated. And then we can really start to connect to other people. So even though some people say, oh my gosh, the state of the world, it's like going to hell in a handbasket. I'm like, I mean, maybe, but I don't think so. I think everything has purpose. Everything has purpose, and we're growing through that purpose. And the more, to me, the more that we can be open hearted, even when it's difficult, the more that we can do this, the more love and the more space we're offering to each other. We are here to be servants to each other. And it's that sort of 100th monkey theory that the more people that do it, the increased energy of love that we offer. That it's bigger than the summation of the individuals. And eventually, this world, we become more conscientious of how we impact others, how we impact our environment. So we're starting to do this with movements of eating food that is organic, or eating food that is not sourced from animal products, or whatever. We're starting to see sort of pockets of those movements, and all of that is consciousness that's really arising. So the future is not there. We're the future. We're living in the future if we are just willing to see the truth, right? If
Yes.
we're willing to kind of
Yes.
see things.
And I'm sorry to be laughing, but my dog has been barking the whole time you've been talking, which is, I think she's feeling imprisoned. And so I take,
You need to give her a little bit break.
I, oh, here, my husband's going to help. She
It's
needs to
the
be released from where she is right now, but she's been up here with me and she never does this. So
it's the energy that we're generating, I
yeah,
think.
there's something, let me out of here. Let me out of here. Or she got scared before the debate about, pets being eaten or something like that.
Oh
So,
gosh, I know that
yeah,
ridiculous. I know.
anyway, I'm so sorry that was happening while you were
That's
talking.
fine.
It was beautiful.
But that's the miracle of life, isn't it? Is that we are learning to be more present with each other. The difficult part is that sometimes that process is difficult. But it's the same thing as someone building musculature. Someone that's building musculature, it may not be easy, but it's going to be fruitful. We want things to be easy, but it may not be easy. But the fruit that we are cultivating is connection.
Yes,
That
absolutely.
that's what we're cultivating.
And I really agree with you about we don't like feelings, even though I trained to be a therapist. I thought I was a real feeling oriented person through my first 3 rounds of therapy, maybe. And then only later found out I don't even know how I feel. But I used to lead with anger. I mean, that was be my first thing I would feel was the anger, only for years later to realize not only the anxiety behind the anger, but the fear. And there are layers and layers and layers, and a lot of people may not do this kind of healing work within themselves, and that's their choice. And I don't want to judge anybody for however they live their lives or lifestyles or whatever, but for me it was necessary to look underneath all the emotional stuff, the conflicts I would have in relationships, and figure out as much as I could, not just rationally but intuitively in a feeling way, what was really going on with me, because I don't know anything about what's going on with the other person, really.
Right.
All I know is about me.
Right. And when we think about, you start to uncover and you start to uncover. And sometimes it can be exhausting. I remember having a conversation with my husband when we had first met, and he wasn't really exposed to sort of the psychic metaphysical realm. And he said in the middle of the conversation, he said, so let me get this right. He said, the soul is eternal. And I said, mm-hmm. And he goes, and we come into physical form. And I'm like, mm-hmm. He goes, to learn. And I said, yep. And he goes, and then we die. I said, yeah. And then he goes, and then we come back. And I said, yep. And he goes, and because the soul's eternal, we do this forever. And I said, yeah. And he goes, that sounds horrible. And I said, I mean, when you put it in those words, it does sound not great. But when we start to think of it from a higher perspective, we're here to play. And through our play, we're going to learn. And that play never ends. How wonderful is that? So I know some people think about healing work and doing the work and going to therapy and having to face things. And it's like, is it ever going to end? It's kind of like saying, are you ever going to realize your full light? In a sense, no. But isn't that wonderful? Isn't that wonderful to keep on realizing your light and keep on growing and keep on expanding? Because
Right.
not only does it help you, it helps other people as they witness that. So it's beautiful.
It can be, yes, and
It
hence
can be.
hence
It can
his
be.
description of birth, death, no life in the but I think a lot of people do get stuck in the trauma and neglect or abuse that they've had and only see the suffering, and that's so I mean, all of us have been through phases like that, like, when's
Yeah.
this gonna end and when's the next shoe gonna drop, and people are very frightened about that, and I've read and hear other teachers talk about suffering, though, is necessary in order to grow, maybe like no pain, no gain with a muscle.
Right.
Um, but it doesn't have to be always difficult and hard and agonizing work. And I think that's partly, and tell me what you think, it's partly about accepting we are just human. We are full of parts, and some parts are judges, and some parts are angry little babies who got left in the crib. And if we accept all that, it's not like we have to fight our way through the birth canal again, but we can say, oh, that's just being human. And I need a connection and long for a connection with spirit because I do want some source of comfort and the light shining down on me or from up down below the darkness shining on me. And there are all sorts of ways people figure out how to deal
Right.
with that. Yeah.
Well, and the we live in a world where we want to tally things, we want to measure things, we want to create some blame. And when we think about responsibility, whether that is racial responsibility, whether that is gender responsibility, whether it's spiritual responsibility, we want to break things down and go, this is where you messed up, or this is where I messed up. And I do believe that it can be beneficial to a point. The problem is um, we don't always add grace. And grace lets us know that, you know what, sometimes people just make mistakes. Sometimes we're doing the best that we can. And sometimes, like, learning to love someone is just letting go of whatever expectations that you have for them and choosing to love them in that moment. And so to me, it's like we want to do things in very adequate and measured ways. And what we don't realize is nature is not like that. Sometimes, um, I think about some species of penguins that engage in homosexual behavior, and it's like, well, we think that sex is supposed to be about, procreation, and it's like maybe it's supposed to be about fun
Mhm.
and nurturing and connection. So we got to think outside the box, and grace is that ingredient that helps us think outside the system so that we can really be present with each other and we can go, you know what? They're trying the best that I can, and I'm trying the best that I can. Let's just choose love and work from there rather than work from anger or blame or, a number of human things.
Yeah, that's so much easier. And I think one thing you said struck me is that we make mistakes. Yes, and though sometimes we're not even conscious that we're making the mistake. I know I've
Right,
been there a lot with clients as well as family members where I will say one thing and they heard it very differently than I meant it or intended it to happen. And it's nobody's fault that that happens. It does happen between human beings. And it's unfortunate, but it's something to learn and grow from because we're also unique. We're only seeing the world through our own filters. And I don't know your filters as well as I know mine. And so I believe
right.
me, not you, you know, and we've got to open that up a little bit too, I think.
There was when I was learning about the Enneagram, there was a musical artist. For those of you that don't know what the Enneagram is, a system that we've adopted to be more of a personality system now. So this musical artist called Sleeping at Last released an album, and it was sort of describing the Enneagram types, the type 1, the type 2, the type 3. And I believe that he types as a type 4. And so someone sent me the type 8. That's the type that I identify with. And they said, "What do you think?" And I listened to it and I was like, "It's okay. It's all right." And they said, "Aren't you moved by it?" And I said, "It sounds like what a type 4 would say about a type 8." And so it's kind of like there are filters that we just can't see past. That no matter what the work that we do is, we have these filters that we just are going to have. Give yourself grace if you can't get past that. Give others grace, you
Mhm.
know, if you are seeing something and they're saying, well, here's how I'm interpreting it. It's like, okay, I am doing the best that I can, and there are things that I'm not going to understand through my filter. Help me out, assist me. And so very much but the epidemic that we live in is that we don't ask for help. We don't ask for assistance. So this is what makes this series very pivotal is we're having conversations, and people that may want to know something are listening to your series and go, I need to reach out to that person for assistance, or I need to talk to Barbara for this, or I need to talk to one of your other, we talked about a few people beforehand, those people, and I need to reach out to them for assistance because I can't get past my filter, and but I still need to grow, you know? So
I
it's pretty
think,
amazing.
yeah, and back to forgiveness, I think the hardest part is forgiving ourselves or believing that spirit forgives us for whatever we've done, but
Mhm.
forgiving ourselves and dealing with our shame and grief and all that other stuff is something all sorts of helpers and assistants and healers and coaches and therapists can help someone with. And though the person needs to be willing, open to do that kind of work. And that's so important because I think more and more people are becoming more open to that. And you know Richard Rudd probably, but I
Oh
love
yeah.
Richard Rudd as well as you, and I don't know him. The Gene Keys, Master. I just listened to, he was in St. James Church in London last night doing
Oh,
a beautiful talk about prophecy in 2027, but he just made a beautiful wraparound about how we grow as human beings and how a new age is coming in and there'll be a new human and our DNA is changing and mutating. It's just beautiful. I wish I could speak like that. And why did I bring him up? I wonder why I brought him up. So he's
maybe
in,
it was forgiveness. Maybe did he talk about having new chakras?
that is interesting. Well, this is an aging brain, and sometimes we make connections, and then by the time we get to the point, we've
That's
forgotten.
okay.
And that is okay. And
That's
we'll do
okay.
it later. I've had clients say, oh, I've forgotten what I was going to say. And I'm always like, it'll come back. Don't worry.
Well, we're supposed to be in the present moment anyway.
Yeah, yeah. So whatever I was going to say about Richard Rudd, though, the Gene Keys, his website is really good, the
Mhm.
genekeys.com. Um,
But you talked about forgiveness.
yes, yes,
And
forgiving ourselves.
I want to touch on that because what is so interesting is to me, forgiveness is both the process and forgiveness is the goal. So forgiveness is a process in which we connect back to ourselves and our source. Um, but we are working towards the complete forgiveness, the coming back together, the wholeness, the reconnection. And, you know, we can do forgiveness work as simple as, um, oh, I wrote something on social media. It agitated me that I said that. Or I'm so glad that I got over on them or put them in their place. And it's like, you got to ask yourself for feeling first. Are you feeling happy? Are you feeling at peace? And if the answer is no, then let's start the process of number one, you made a mistake. You chose wrong. Give yourself a little bit of grace and start that forgiving process. The word karma literally means action, to take action. So maybe the karma around the forgiveness is, let me go back online and let me delete that comment, or let me ask I'm sorry, I was in a bad place, and it is what it is. But it can feel difficult because we have to go through our feelings. Just because it feels difficult doesn't mean it is difficult. It's our projection of that is really difficult.
Or our interpretation of how we think that makes us be, or a belief. You made me think of family constellations, and I've also got a mentor named Tammy Roth who
Oh,
did,
I love her.
yeah, she did family constellations training with you, however many years ago.
Yeah.
LGBT brought that in. And family constellations, one of the things I keep hearing them say, and I love it, is everything belongs. So if I've made a mistake, yes, I made that mistake. I can't undo it, don't need to undo it. I can make amends for it or apologize and
Right.
give myself for it, but it still all belongs. It's every moment that, and every part of us all belongs. And we sometimes have louder voices. Like, I will put these wonderful spiritual quotations on Facebook. The next moment I'm putting a political something on there that's very judgmental and rabid. Like, oh, how can they do this? So I've got all those parts in me, and they
Yeah.
sometimes get into conflict and sometimes they don't.
And I think that that I love that those are parts of you, those are aspects of you, and there are times when the process of forgiveness doesn't end, where we can go back to an action and go, I'm at peace with that, and then later on and go, I'm not really sure how I feel about that. I'm not clear about that. And both things can be true because you're constantly learning how to sort of grow and change and heal and be at peace. And no one says that. To me, forgiveness is not, it's not a goal. You can forgive a person on Tuesday and can be completely at peace with them. And then there are days where, you can be like, the very next or 2 days later, I'm so agitated with that person, and it brings everything up. And the point is, let's not judge ourselves too harshly, you know, because we think, I've dealt with this for 20 years. Why is this still coming up? It does, and you work on it and you forgive yourself, and that doesn't mean you haven't gone forward or you haven't grown. You have. It's a practice. Life is a practice. Um, One thing about Tammy that's interesting, she reminds me a lot about my dad, and maybe because they're both Virgos. Um, but there's a practicality to her thinking of healing and also a groundedness. And I think when we think about forgiveness, it is an emotional piece, and it's also a very action-oriented, kind of practical piece. And we have to balance both. Family constellations is like that. It's sort of that embodying energy to kind of move it and ground, but you're doing stuff to embody it, but it's this energy that you're working with.
Right. And that's what I'm going to be talking about in my meditation gathering later. The words embody grace just does a lot for me. Embody grace and illuminate liberation. But peace is all I love. I've been searching for peace all my life. I'm getting some of it now, which feels so good. But peace is action also. It's not just being calm and relaxed and resting. It is action as well. And
Right.
humans, so we're going to have those emotions and everything else that goes along with that. And hopefully our actions will reflect our evolution, but not always, not always. So let me ask you one more thing, and then we might do something else. What else would you like to tell people about you and your transformation or your evolution or life? If not you, just the state of the world. Anything else you want to say about that? And then I think one other thing.
That if I could stress anything that I have learned and that I'm in the process of learning is that there is only one absolute, and that absolute is love is everything. There is only love. That is the only absolute. Um, and the reason I stress this, and I'm going to give you a couple of examples. Um, about a year ago, I was asked to do a sermon at a church. And I am not good with writing things down. I don't enjoy writing things down and really rehearsing. I'm much better at stream of consciousness. And I kind of sat there and I thought, what do I want to say? And the sermon was kind of writing through me. And there was a Rumi quote that came up at the end of the thought process that I thought I need to talk about. And the quote was, um, what you are seeking is seeking you. And what came up out of me was, is that true? Because we have this idea that um, if love is everything and I am seeking love, does that mean that love is seeking me? And to me, no, love is not seeking me because I'm not lost. I'm not out there somewhere and love has to find me. Love is within me. What I am seeking has already found me. It's right in front of me. I'm embodying it. And so even to think of that, here is this, ancient mystic, and I'm, challenging this wisdom. And is that okay? And is that, but this is an absolute truth. What you were seeking is seeking you. And I thought, I don't think anything is seeking me. I think I'm found. I think that spirit already is within me and is emerging, and everything is perfect and everything is love, and there is only one absolute. So what I would leave people with is to let them know, if love is an absolute, then that means that everything else is not, and that we can change our mind to anything. So when you are projecting your thought, we are so interconnected that when we are thinking about someone, there is an energy that is being sent out to them that attaches to them, and it's much more difficult. We make it difficult for people to heal, to change, to grow. But if we start to think of, can I change my truth about someone? Because the truth is that there is only absolute love. There's only absolute love. So it's my projection of my truth of who they are. Then let me change what that is. That doesn't mean that you make abusive situations okay. That means you heal the energy within yourself and you send a different projection. Even if that projection is, I know that you are absolute love, and I know that you are stuck someplace in your consciousness, and I choose not to engage with you, but I know that you're absolute love and you're on your path. We are here to challenge our truths. I love astrology, but astrology is a 2,000-year-old system that hasn't shifted and changed, and we need to update that. We just like we need to update our laws, we need to update how we see forgiveness. It used to be that if you forgive someone, you let them into your life. And we know now that, oh, we can forgive someone and not let them into our lives, and that's okay too. And that doesn't mean we haven't forgiven them. And so if love is the only absolute, then everything else is changeable and we can grow. And in a way that's beautiful, We love is the island, and we get to play in the waters around the island and swim in the ever-changing seas, and know that we are not far from the island, and the island extends below us and is supporting us, because the earth doesn't end at the shore. That love is always supporting us even if we don't know, you know. Love is amazing.
Yes, and I'm so glad you preached a sermon because you are a good preacher, and you might do more of that yourself in terms of spreading the word. I know you do teach classes and you talk at your church and do all sorts.
Yeah.
People are hungry for your words and your beliefs, Frank. And is it okay with you that we do what we thought about, which is I'm going to have Frank do a brief reading for me here so that you can see how he works? You won't know everything. This is just one brief reading, but would that be okay with you, Frank?
I would love that. That's my favorite thing to do. So what I will do, and just kind of because I have my sort of method for doing things, I always start with asking you if you want to know everything, and then I'm going to say a prayer, and I'm going to say it very quickly. If anybody watches and they like the prayer, and you're able to slow it down and listen back to it, please take it and make it your own. This is just something that I developed, and then we'll go from there. So, my question for you is, do you want to know everything?
Yes, and we've talked about this beforehand, just to say I have a very private family who I'm going to be careful about, but I want to know everything about whatever you're hearing. Yes.
Okay. I surround us in white light of purity, white light of integrity, white light of truth. I surround us in white light of prophecy, peace, and unity. I surround us in the positive white light of God. I create a healing space for the fourth of the dimensions, and I thank the universe for this space. Spirit, Mother God, Father God, Angels, God, they will see us, totems, beings, and entities that work with, through, and for Barbara assistance in this reading. I need to let you know that there's a father energy that steps in very strongly. Now, we're talking about talking, okay? And we're doing this series, and there is this feeling of, I feel like he needed to be heard. The energy that I'm seeing is almost as if he were like a Ricky Ricardo. That's the image that I'm seeing of like being on a stage and the band behind him and Ricky talking to people and singing. But I feel like, and not necessarily that he did that, but that there's this feeling of um, I'm good in front of people. I like to be in front of people. Um, I want to talk to people. And sometimes when we speak, we learn. We within the structure of human design, ego manifestors do this. They speak their truth and then they learn through what they're speaking. And so there is this father energy that comes in, and he makes me feel like I did not want to leave. I did not want to go. Uh, I still wanted to experience more, but he's making me feel like as he steps forward, what you are doing, stepping into your power as a teacher, as a speaker, someone that is helping to connect people. He makes me feel like you get this gift from him. Okay. He makes me feel like this is where you're getting this. And there's a feeling of, now, I do feel like he's a little bit of likes to be right a lot. So someone that would hear, a wrong note and would be like, we need to fix that. So almost like Ricky Ricardo, remember that it's a show. He's putting on a show at the whatever cabana that he was in. So there is this feeling of like, um, I knew how to tighten things. I knew about performance. I almost think of like our church service on Sundays in a way is our product at our church. It's things have to go correctly. So he makes me feel like he's very good at, if there is a idea, I'm good at looking at all the details and making sure that that idea goes off without a hitch. And why he comes in, he makes me feel like, and we're talking about truths changing, that he wants you to know that the structure of what you're doing can evolve and can change. And almost as if it's weird to say he's giving you permission, but really what that is when someone gives us permission, they're holding a frequency for us that we can then, that we feel like is now available to us. Because there is this sense of how you see the first episode of this and how you see the last, if there is a last. Obviously, it's going to change. But he makes me feel like he's almost giving you permission to change, and he's going to be tightening up all the details. He's really good at this is how I want things to happen. Is he a speaker? Did he like to hear himself talk?
Yeah.
So I see him.
So this is where we get into funny stuff. So my father was a Marine pilot, a dance band musician before that and after that. So he was so he was a dance band musician at the in Georgia at the opening of Gone with the Wind. So
Oh wow, like at the movie theater.
yes. So then he became later in life, after all sorts of things, being a manager of a factory and stuff, he became a preacher. So he's an Episcopalian, was an Episcopalian priest who I look like. And I watched him all my early life standing up there as my dad, who's the preacher, and kept trying to find another one like him and never could because he was fabulous. And I don't know if he was into details. That's more like my mother, but my dad could work a crowd. He was somewhat charismatic, but honest and true and brought the word to life, you know?
And what is so interesting is um, he's making me feel like you're gonna write. He makes me feel like there's going to be someone. Now, sometimes someone is supposed to do everything, right? So sometimes if we write a book, we are the ones that are doing um, the idea and the brainstorming and the organization and then the writing and then the book editing and the book designing. He makes me feel like you're going to write a book, and he makes me feel like there's going to be a calligrapher, a female that's going to do calligraphy. And he makes me feel like you may already know her, maybe, I'm not sure, but he's bringing up this energy where it's going to look, calligraphy is appealing visually. The word is visual, it's beautiful. It's also, so the book that I see you writing is going to be your story, and not so much your story about the things that you have gone through, because those are just facts, those are just details. It's what have I learned? What have I learned as a mother, as a woman, as a daughter, as a spiritual seeker? We're here to share our stories. And what I'm seeing is I feel like the art is going to be beautiful calligraphy. And he makes me feel like there are going to be pictures, okay, or drawings. It is your book, but in a way, it's also an effort in community connection where like, oh, I know this person and they have a gift in this, and maybe they're not doing this right now, so I'm going to reach out to her to, see if you can help me with it. There, to me, I feel like there's sort of this collaborative effort. And why he comes forward, he makes me feel like um, th- there's a lot of different offshoots as to what you're doing. Um, the lesson here, that we are learning is to be supported. And if someone says, I would love to do this, I want to be part of this, you know, um, does it match my vision? And if it does match my vision and my values, how do I incorporate them? Because what I'm seeing, the thing that you're building is you're not just building a YouTube series or a podcast, um, you are showcasing real conversation with people, having insights, different views. And these are just offerings. No one has to be right. And your dad makes me feel like this is not about, I feel like the way that he maybe ministered or the way that he sang or the way that he makes me feel like there was not much forethought to it. I was just stepping into allowing things to come through me. And so I feel like this is going to be very much about you allowing conversations to change and to shift. And the common thread or the golden um, thread through this is going to be growth. How do we grow? What directions are we growing in? How are we seeing growth? The human consciousness, humanity is just the vehicle that we're using right now that eventually is going to change, and we may grow out of this this body, this system, just like we've been homo sapiens and or homo erectus and homo this and homo that, um, but I feel like we're never going to stop growing, and this is a continuation. What you're doing currently is a continuation of work that you've done in other lifetimes. So you purposely chose this family line to draw, we talk about ancestral gifts, to draw on that energy. The thing that's coming up is um, think of the rest of 2024 and the first part of 2025 as connecting the dots. So, like a constellation, someone had to look at the stars and connect the dots and create a story around it. Um, there is this feeling, or maybe it wasn't created, maybe it was channeled. There is this feeling of you are here to also connect people. So, this isn't just about you sharing information, it's going to be where you talk to people and you're like, wow, I need you to connect to this person. They have great wisdom, or, you really should work with. So sometimes we don't always know the ripple effect that we're making. And one of the fear, the anger, you weren't actually angry. What you were angry with was time. I want to make sure I have enough time to do everything correctly, to learn everything. You're not an angry person. So even if you dealt with anger in the past, it wasn't an anger specifically to something. You have a relationship with time that is very important. Not being late, doing things correctly, wanting to experience everything. And so it's almost as if you came into this lifetime wanting to run and finish, cross the finish line. It's like, I need to get there. I need to do things correctly. I don't have a lot of time. There was an urgency. And so I feel like one of the healings that you're going to be working on in this life is letting things be whatever they're going to be. If it's not on my timetable, it's fine. If I don't experience everything on time, it is what it is. It's fine. To me, it's a realization of sort of letting go of the expectation of time. What he does bring up is sacred traveling. He makes me feel like you're going to go to these sacred spots. And he's making me feel like uh, years ago, I went to some uh, mounds, indigenous mounds in Georgia. And he makes me feel like he is going to be sending you the opportunity to go to certain places. Now, these places can be certain mounds, certain sacred spots. And he's making me feel like stream of consciousness. Just wait. See what comes out of you. It may be that you stand there and it may be you hold hands with other people that are there, and that all you have to do is open up your mouth and let it kind of channel through you. And it may be a word, it may be a frequency, it may be a sound. And it's important that that sound, it will only come when the timing is right. Again, going back to, I feel like I need to do everything correctly or on time. And it's like, if it doesn't come out of you, then it's not supposed to. But there are going to be moments where you are out there holding hands with other people, and something will channel through you. And it's supposed to be for the people that are there. It's supposed to be for that time and space you're supposed to create an impact. And if if there is a time and space continuum, that's sort of the fabric that lays or is overall reality, then the things that you're going to do connect to the things that other people that are going to do that are conscious actions. And for you, a conscious action of being heard, a conscious action of listening and allowing myself to be an instrument, just like the prayer of St. Francis, Lord, make me an instrument. I feel like your father was successful because he knew how to, I don't want to say turn it on, but I will say, because I think that's a very intentional action of putting something on. And I don't feel like that's what it is. He makes me feel like he's going to assist you in surrendering and letting whatever come through come through. And it's like creating spaces on the fabric of the time space continuum that also connects to other things that other people are doing, and we're all kind of making a connection. And so he makes me feel like my work with you is not done. It's simply not done. I love you, but the work is not done. I'm still continuing to work on the other side. He does make a connection to an N that's on the other side. So this N would be like a Nicole, or like it's almost like maybe like a mother figure energy that's somewhere on the other side. Maybe like mother-in-law energy. He is with her. He is not necessarily with his dad. I don't know where his dad is, somewhere out there, whatever. But he makes me feel like he's in charge of connecting the women, the mother or the mother-in-law, you, like you connecting other women. To me, it's almost like if you are going to create a thread for the divine feminine, then he's also creating it on the other side, and it's like he's holding one end and you're holding the other. To know that, and I don't know, maybe you didn't have a relationship with the other, I don't know, but all of this information is coming through directly from him. Do you have any questions?
I do. This is how Frank does readings. I just want to say a couple things. One is I do know the calligrapher. It's my sister-in-law, Peggy.
She actually does calligraphy?
She is a calligrapher par excellence. She is beautiful calligrapher. And we could do a project together, which she doesn't know about yet because she's going to have to listen to this. The other thing is when you said an in person, I thought, okay, so now my father's mother, who I never knew because she was already deceased, was named Norma. Norma
Oh,
White. And I only connected with her in the last couple of years, actually, spiritually, because I never knew her. And I found a picture of my father and her when he was about 3 years old. So there's this picture of this big woman. She was a big woman, and she kept him at home, what they would call homeschooling now, but she didn't let him go to school to third grade because she was so connected to him. Anyway, it's a long story, but Norma, there's a Norma there.
and it must have been really difficult for him to lose her with that
Mhm.
intense connection. And it's like he's connected with her
Yes.
now, you know? So it kind of comes full circle. And for someone to have such strong energy and strong opinions as she had, it's like you have very strong women that are helping you with it. Sometimes we're not in charge of our legacy. We're not in charge of, all we can be in charge of is what we do. We're not in charge of how things are received and what happens, with the information that we give out. But they're in charge of it. And it's like they're saying the work that you're doing right now, when I say it's a destiny work, you were supposed to do this for a long time. It had to happen at the right time. It happened at the right time. And now that it's happening, it's like she's in charge of organizing and telling people what to do. It's interesting. Yeah.
Very complex and interesting. And
Hmm.
you ask if I have any questions. I don't. I just am so thankful for knowing you, for however I got to you.
Me too.
I think you were 20. I don't know how old you are now, but I think you were 25 when I met you. I thought, what's this young guy doing with these gifts? And
Well, I'm 43 now, and people are like, okay.
yeah, but at 25, I was like, oh my God, who is this man? So you have helped me share with the world, which is what I want to do these days. And you're right. I really want to channel that and unblock, remove some barriers, let go of some barriers that block me, especially here and my heart area, to open up to whatever's there and not be on my time schedule, because I did that for many years and it was wonderful and I love my work, and I'm done with that now. I'm done with it.
Right.
And I'm so happy that I'm in a different place and that I have lived long enough to be able to enjoy this space and time. And
Yeah.
you are part of that, Frank. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. It's magical.
Yeah. Any last words you want to say?
Well, the only thing that I would say is, when we have the opportunity for connection, to do it. Just like we had the opportunity to do this so often. Um, Life can be difficult, and it can bog us down. But when you get the opportunity to connect, you know, that's what we're here to do. And
That's,
through connection is love. So do it.
I
Mhm.
agree. Thank you, Frank. And thank
Thank
you
you
for
so much.
listening. And if you want to contact Frank, thespiritchrysalis.com.
Hmm.
Thank you. I
Take
appreciate
care.
many blessings.
Same.
Bye-bye.